All right, we're back to our friendly The C major cadence song. So this is in the key of C major, as we know, for two reasons. There's two things right away that tell us it's in C major. One of them is the title. That's kind of obvious, but it's probably right if they called it the C major song, right? Another thing is the lack of a key signature, or another way you can think about that is the key signature. So it has a key signature, but it is nothing. So that means we are in the key of C major. So what I want to do here is let's just identify the chords. What I want you to do is listen to this piece, and I want you to see if you can hear when there's a new chord a new chord, right? So when the chord changes. So just listen and see if you can hear the chord change. It might be hard to hear in these first couple bars, but once we start to get chords down here spelled out more, like all played at the same time, it might be a little more obvious. So just see if you can get a feel for when the chord is changing. Don't worry if you're wrong. I'll tell you what's right. So let's just listen to the song first and listen for that, and then I'll talk a little bit more about it. Okay, now how often did you hear a new chord happening? Let me rephrase that to be a little more clear. How often did you hear a change in the chord? Not necessarily a chord we hadn't heard before, but a change in the chord. The answer is every bar. In this particular piece, the chord changes every bar. Now that's not a universal truth in all music by any means. But in this piece, the chord changes every bar. So this bar is made up of a chord. Now this is a case where the notes are spelled out. But if you take these first three notes, and kind of the fourth one, but let's just focus on these first three for a minute. If you played those at the same time, it would be a chord, but this particular one is spelled out. Down here, we start to get chords. So this is what I mean. Watch this. So here's the three notes of the chord that's happening in this bar, right? Here it is again. So it's C, E, G, and then we hear C, E, G, right? It's all one chord. This is just another C, so it's another octave, but it's all the same notes of this chord. Even in the bass line, C, E, G. Right? So we're just using those three notes, C, E, G, in this whole bar. Same thing here, we're going to be using three notes also, but they're three different notes. It's C, F, A, right? So one of the notes is the same. There's C, F, A, another C, and C, F, A. So we have three different notes, so it's a different chord. Here we're back to the first chord. Same notes again, right? Here we're on a third chord, right? A different chord that's not this one or this one or that one. This is B, D, G. B, D, G, and another B, right? An octave right there. And B, D, G. So it's just, there's a chord every bar, but it's kind of spelled out in a few different ways. Here again, we have C, E, G. We've done this before. Okay. So now another important thing that I want to point out here is how many different chords are in this piece, right? Let's do this. Let's just listen to this bass, the left-hand part here from about here to the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the right hand. And let's just delete this just to make it easy to hear. Okay, so let's listen from right here to the end. I want you to try to pay attention to how many different chords we hear, right? So there's one chord every bar, and it's really obvious in this section, which is why I chose this section, with the exception of right here, because this is a chord, and this is a different chord. So they threw a little curveball in right there, right? So they throw in one additional chord there, and that's okay. You know, the composer can do whatever they want. So let's listen from here. How many different chords do you hear? Okay. How many different chords do you hear? The answer is 3. And this is true of this entire piece, even the stuff I deleted. There are only 3 chords in this whole piece, and they keep alternating. If you thought 4, the odds are maybe you thought this chord was different. But if we look at the notes, B, D, G, that's the same chord we're getting all over the place up here. Here, and then here, and then here, right? So that's the same chord. Now, once we have names for these, which we will shortly, you'll see that the pattern goes this chord, and then something else, and then this chord again, and then something else. And then that's the pattern over and over. So this, let me just tell you, this is a C major chord. So it goes C major, something else, C major, something else, and then again, C major, something else, C major, something else, C major, something else, etc. It's going back and forth to that C major chord every other bar, pretty much. And this is a pattern of 4 bars. These 4 bars repeat for the whole thing. Even if we go back up to the beginning, we'll see C major, something else, the same something else as down below, C major, again, something else, and then C major, something else. So this 4-bar pattern of chords repeats for the whole piece. Now they do different things with the chords, because there's a lot you can do with chords other than just playing the chords, right? You can do all this other kind of stuff. But these 4 bars of the chord progression, in these 4 bars, and we're going to talk a lot more about that little phrase chord progression shortly. But the chord progression repeats over and over and over in this piece. It's just those 4 bars over and over, and those 3 different chords, right? This one, and this one are 3 different chords. So it's actually relatively simple. It's just 3 chords in a 4-bar pattern, because one of them repeats over and over. Okay, so that was just kind of a teaser of what we're going to see in this piece. We're going to do a full analysis of this piece shortly. But next, let's dive into what makes a chord. And I told you this was a C major chord, but why? Why is that a C major chord? Why those 3 notes in particular, and why 3 notes at all? So we're going to get into that right now. So let's jump into triads next.